Yo, welcome to another episode of the BJJ Goons podcast. I'm your host, co-host, Tim the MUSHMASTER Spriggs, and with me, as always, every week is the second half of the team. Some may argue the most important part.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Nico Ball. And it's funny you should do the intro that way because I had to do a testimonial for DISA. And I was trying to I said I'm the executive director of Today Kids Project. And I was like, I'm the host of do I put host or co-host of the podcast when I'm just trying to give can I say I'm a host, but I'm one of the two hosts, but I'm just
You should just say you're
myself.
the host. You should just say you're the host.
I put co in parentheses so that he could decide. I wasn't sure what was the proper way to drop that title, but yeah, aka Crossface Killer. That I got, aka Crossface Killer.
Well, Nico, today we have a very important topic that we skirt around every episode or so. Today, we're going to be a little bit more in depth, and we're most likely going to have to go over this again. But the question for today, should you go full-time in jiu-jitsu?
I don't think we skirt around this every episode, Tim. I think you talk about your stories and scare people away from going full-time in jiu-jitsu. And then I try to be like, no, this is a jiu-jitsu podcast. Tim, stop trying to scare people.
I don't scare people away from doing jiu-jitsu full-time. I tell them my experience and the good and the bad and the ugly of it all. And I think that's important to do. I will never bullshit you. I would like to believe that part of the reason why this podcast is successful is that you get firsthand accounts from people that have been in the industry in different ways, whether it's your side where you're the media, you do nonprofit work, you teach, and you come from, well, I'm a hobbyist too, but you come from someone that doesn't really do it full time in the same way that I do. Do you understand what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I have it from the purely athlete, dope ass, broke ass grappler aspect of everything. And I've reached the pinnacle. I've done a lot. I'm not going to say I've done everything. There's very few guys that can claim that, but I will say I have a lot of experience in that part. And my responsibility as someone who has experienced a lot, who some may consider an OG, it's my responsibility to let people know the cold, hard facts. And I try to sprinkle a little bit of facts in what I say, a lot of facts. And sometimes it's just not pretty.
It's not a lot pretty. Of times. But, I always tell people, and actually earlier today before we started filming, and we've talked about Meghi before, and we've referenced her podcast that she did on the BJ. I always call it the BJJ Goons Mental Minds. It's the BJJ Mental Minds when she was talking about athletes and financial literacy. So today she had a master class that was talking about athletes and personal branding and how to get sponsorship. And I always tell people and reference, I was talking to somebody else that he's a video producer and he is into wrestling. And he's like, oh yeah, I was talking about how athletes are really broke. And you're a great example. And I love being able to watch you and people in Ali go through it because you are at the pinnacle of the sport. You've reached it. You're world champions. You've made it to the top. And it's what's next? We had a former guest, Dwan. He always used to say with social work and everything like that, there's no blueprint to this shit. We're kind of just watching you and other people that have gotten there go through it. And it's a very young industry. So it's really hard to figure out how to do it, but you really need to have resources, and you're a great resource to see what has been done. And I appreciate that. Thank you, Tim.
I have a confession to make. I don't view myself as a great resource because I believe that I've failed in a lot of ways as a professional athlete trying to make it as a hustler.
But we need to learn from that. Exactly. We don't want to have to fail the same way you failed. We want to watch you fail, be like, yo, you seen Tim do that? Not for me.
Don't do it.
You're you're a trailblazer. That's the thing.
Well, if that's the case, then there's going to be a lot of failure spoken about in this episode, and it may be a little cathartic for me. We may go longer than our 30-minute intended run time, which we've been trying to go for if you guys haven't noticed. But let's get into it. My definition of full-time means 6 hours minimum of jiu-jitsu specific skills development, compete in at least 5 tournaments and or super fights, or just have big money super fights like 1 or 2. That's what I would consider full-time as an athlete. Now, if we're going to talk about coaching, I think that, of course, school ownership would put you as someone that is full-time because a business is a full-time job. If you're an instructor and that's the primary means of earning a living, I think that makes you full-time. Generally speaking, it's the amount of time you put in or how important performing that art form or being involved in that space, the percentage of it going towards your income or how important it is to you, or just, your lifestyle. That's what I consider full-time. But I think you have a couple questions about that, don't you, Nico?
Yeah. So do you consider a full-time athlete? Can they have a job?
Yes, a side hustle is possible.
A side hustle and a job are two different things. Full-time job.
Okay, a full-time job. So you're saying you're doing 8 hours of work a day.
Sample like Array and Tammy Musumechi.
All right. I wouldn't consider them full-time.
Okay.
I don't consider that full-time. Do you think they're putting in the minimum of 6 hours a day?
I don't know. I was asking you the question. That's a question. There's a
I don't think
question mark.
Array
These are
does.
question marks on this outline, Tim Spriggs. These are
Okay.
question marks. These are my questions. I'm posing to you. Are these full-time? So could you have a full-time job and be full-time? Or for example, I used to work at a night school. So I didn't have a full-time job. It was part-time. So I worked 4 hours a day. I worked like 5 to 9 Monday through Thursday.
Mhm. I mean, how often were you training? Were you training every day? How long were you training for?
So basically, I could train TLI wise. I could hit the morning training. And if I was willing to pay for parking, which generally I wasn't willing to pay for parking because I was uptown, like I could hit evening training, maybe 8:45 to 9:30 part. No, wait, I got off work at 9. So training ended at 9:30. So maybe I get the last 30 minutes of evening training. Sometimes, Master will be running it late, but like,
Yeah.
that's what is it. I get morning training and I'm showing up to evening training at 9.
Well, if that's the case, then you definitely had a full-time load. I think a part of being full-time is the quality of training that you're going to do as well. You can do a 2.5, 3-hour practice at an elite school like Team Lloyd Irvin or Atos or Cicero Costa. That's a full-time commitment. And on top of that, it's not only that you're training jiu-jitsu, it's outside things that take up your time. Strength and conditioning, recovery, all types of stuff related to the art form that is required. I think that plays a huge role in you being full-time in jiu-jitsu. Right now, I don't consider myself full-time in jiu-jitsu because although I could get good quality training in, that's my primary focus. I'm not putting in a minimum of 6 hours a day into practicing, and I'm not actively competing. If we're doing the athlete part, and although teaching I get paid to teach, it's still not my primary means of income. I'm not going to a school every day and teaching. And seminars, like if you are a traveling seminar guy, there are guys and gals that do the hard seminar run, which it's possible, but when I first started into jiu-jitsu, I was under the impression that when you're the best, just people just knock down your door to get a seminar from you. But the other aspect
It's
of
not
being a
like that.
full-time jiu-jitsu practitioner is being a business owner, and some people just price themselves out, and a lot of these schools are not trying to spend any kind of money. So that's just the in-depth perspective that I have as far as being a full-time athlete. Do you have any other questions about or ideas of what you consider full-time before we get into this?
No, I think that clears it up.
All right. So that's what I consider a full-time jiu-jitsu athlete. First and foremost, the things that you need to think about when you're going full time and whether or not you should go full time, you need to think about expenses. Let's start equipment. Equipment can be, let's say, your gi, tape, different things that you need, a mouthpiece. A mouthpiece is a huge investment, and it can be expensive if you're a dope ass, broke ass grappler. Other expenses include medical and dental insurance. I was lucky when I started training full time because it was Obamacare and I was on my parents' really good military insurance. When I got injured, and we all know the story. If you don't know, I'll tell it another time. Basically, I almost
No,
died
you
doing
won't. You just
jujitsu.
dropped that other episode, put them views up on that episode.
Yeah,
We
well,
did talk about it several times.
yes. So you guys should know the story. If you listen to the podcast, I nearly died. And if I didn't have my parents' insurance, I would have been up Shit's Creek because I got really good medical
You
insurance.
do. It's funny
I
because
had.
I'm laughing and it's like you should have divided these into things that are expenses that fighters actually pay for when they go full time and things that they should have thought about, but nobody ever pays for. Like
All
nobody thinks
right.
about medical or dental insurance or a
Can
mouth
I,
guard because most BJJ people don't wear mouth guards. But yes, keep going through your list.
vehicle. You need to get to and fro unless you live in the gym
That's my
or you live in
problem
a city. And the
right
vehicle is
now.
expensive because maintenance, gas. I mean, gas is so high. Like people really might start sucking dick for a gallon of gas, like it's crack. Like people be like, "Come on, man, please just give me one gallon. I'll suck your dick." Like gas money is a damn near like $50 now. Like if you say, "Yo, you want to ride with me?" Yeah, you got to pitch on gas. Like $20 might just be gas money now
You
for
know
going
what
on a
I
trip.
forget? Jamil lives uptown.
Yeah,
I need to get to the gym. I'm not trying to suck his dick, but like he would give me a free ride just if I showed up like in his trajectory.
was it gas, grass, or ass? No free rides. But if you're
What is the video game equivalent? That's what Jamil wants. Like, can I give him like some
you're gonna need to give them like
weapons?
Xbox bucks or like
He plays it
PlayStation
all off his
dollars.
phone. I don't know. I'm gonna listen to his episode because he drops what games he plays and his handle. Somebody can tell me like if I can like give
Nintendo
him some
dollars.
armor or some shit, and then I can get free rides to the gym. But
Okay.
that's a big one. Expenses.
Tournaments. Not everyone is sponsored. Same thing with the equipment issue. When you first start out, we're assuming you're really low level, like your blue belt, purple belt. You're not going to get sponsorship opportunities very often. And when you do, it might be a little bit of equipment. You might get geese, you might not get enough, but you're definitely not going to get your tournaments paid for. 9 times out of 10, if sponsored athlete, they're not paying for your room, they're not paying for your flight, and they're not going to pay for your food. You got to come out of pocket with it.
Or you got to figure out a way to get it done. Like there's sometimes you can get it paid for, but like you have to know. Like somebody was asking me if they should go to that master class because they got little kids. I was like, they're still little, but like there's 2 of them. Like that's double the flights to paying kids. Like there's ways to just fundraise and being intelligent about how to do it because these are all very expensive things. So like you got to figure out what can get paid for and who can pay for it and how much you're actually going to pay for.
Yes.
Because
And
I've gotten a lot of that shit paid for, and I'm as a blue belt.
and I put gym fees here because some people still got to pay to train. If you're a athlete that there are athletes that do have management, and sometimes they may take a percentage. They're not newfangled because I had a manager. We can talk about that another time, but it didn't really work out great. But gyms sometimes still charge athletes, even if you
Are
teach.
full time? Really? That makes sense, but I like.
I mean, some athletes, think about it, if you go to a giant gym, do you think they're letting all those guys train for free?
I mean, I got onto the pro team at Nova. Yeah, even after date, they said no. Once I ran out of money, he had to let me. They still let me train for free. Once I was on the pro team, like
I mean, it depends.
I
It
mean,
depends because then sometimes
It goes in the
It's
matter of
possible.
you paying for class and then like getting into situations where you're not paying for class, but you're like teaching classes or doing things that you're not being paid for either. But like one of the issues with like a lot of full-time people is that like they're not paying for gym fees and not getting paid any job, like because they've not negotiated an actual salary with the gym if that's what they're doing. So they're like going full-time for training, but don't really have money.
And you got to use your time as an exchange for that training, but you're still not getting any greenbacks. And then you're in a dilemma because you're just working for free. You're giving them your time.
So like, cause I know a lot of athletes that have like quit jobs to go full time, whether it be in BJJ or MMA, and then they need money. So then they end up working at Trader Joe's or any random ass job that's not a good job. Like me, for example, like I have degrees. So like I barely went into work. So, but I have a degree in educational psychology. I had a job as a teacher at a night school. I worked 4 hours a day, 4 days a week, had every Friday off so I could fly out for competitions on Friday, compete Saturday, Sunday, be back at work Monday at 5 p.m. so I could fly in from Worlds Monday and still be at work on time, but I could leverage that because I have degrees and like I can work wherever I want. Like I could tutor people if I didn't want to work. Like I quit my job in September. Now I don't work for anybody, but like I'm also not training. I want to be training now. I want to be training, but I do work in the industry doing more photography and stuff like that.
I said tournament fees too, right? Tournament fees, you got to pay to go to the tournaments, assuming. Yeah. So with these expenses in mind, what do you do to make money? Well, there's a few ways. A side hustle. I said a second job. Teaching classes, private lessons, loans. There are people that put out loans. We were in the era of the pandemic. I know of a few grapplers and MMA fighters that got that PPP loan, pop in, or some people just take out personal loans with people. Why you make that face, Nico? People do.
Those are all very like shape. Like, okay, yeah, just keep going. I was like, all right, how are we making money? That's like a PPP loan. Like some of them are different. Like unless it was like unless you could prove it was for salary, which I assume most fighters couldn't because they're independent contractors, like then they had to pay that shit back. So if like you got the wrong kind of PPP loan that you need to pay back, you're gonna fuck yourself over. Like, yes. But ways to make money, because people were hustling up during the pandemic.
Sugar daddy / sugar mama. And sponsors. Some people do get sponsored, but I know for a fact of one person that I know that got a sponsorship that was legitimate money, where it's kind of a salary that I know personally. You may know more than I do, Nico. So those are few and far between. So let's talk about ways you'll be able to make money as a full-timer.
Can we do that? But wait, before we get into ways to make money, can I ask you, why are you trying to make money through jiu-jitsu? How did you know that you should quit your job and go full-time? Like, why don't you have a job? Is that a valid question? I don't mean to go off.
Why do I not have a job?
Not you, because clearly you're you, but like, if we're talking about should you go full-time, right? Like, yeah. Why don't you like, why don't you have a job? Like, why are you going full-time? When is it okay?
Like, when is it okay? All right, so I'll just use myself as an example. Growing up, my parents said that I had to get a college degree. So that was the only prerogative that I had coming out of high school. I knew that I didn't have any options other than going to school. Because then it would have been. So
you got a college degree?
I have a bachelor's degree, yes, in sociology. So I might as well have just gotten a degree in jiu-jitsu, but I still have a degree, which allows me certain things that I can do. I mean, it's hard out here for a pimp anyway, but at least I have a degree, so it's not as hard. I made the decision to go full time because I knew that I have a degree and I'll never go homeless, and I have the ability to grind it out. For someone that wants to go full time, we have different scenarios. We can have a scenario like Talis Pontis, who we interviewed earlier, and he has no other option. Later.
Y'all
Sorry.
see it later. Sorry.
You're going to
Earlier
see it
for us,
later.
later for y'all.
Yeah. But, we interviewed him, and we interviewed a few people that they had no choice. And that's from someone that is a foreigner from another country coming in here, and they have no choice. As far as Americans, some of us don't have a choice in America. That's our only option. I think that there really isn't a good time to do it.
I think some good references, because we definitely don't want to tell a kid like that's coming out of high school, like don't go to college. Like we interviewed Malachi, and we'll have to like do our research and check the episodes. Like Malachi talks about how he sucked at high school, sucked at college, and had Master Donnie kind of sneaking him out of classes. Jamil, world champion, talks about how he did that all while getting his degree. Different people have gone through different degrees of education, and like it's really a matter of figuring out what kind of works best for you. But definitely when we're talking about being able to pay yourself, it's really important to have like some kind of plan, some financial intelligence, and like some skills in what you're doing. So all right, let's go back on to our expenses, or no, what to do to make money once you've taken the jump. All right, we going pro. Hope whether you have a degree, you just dropped out of high school, you completed high school, you're going pro. What are we doing to make money?
Well, as far as second jobs, you're going to have to find a second job that matches your training schedule or your ideal training schedule, because some of us don't have the luxury of just training full time. We need to grind it out. I know of guys that work to Trader Joe's, bouncers, bartenders, which, honestly, I kind of think I would like to be a bartender, because I filmed a movie role and I was playing a bartender like a couple weeks ago. And I was on set and there were actual bartenders there, and they told me what kind of money they were making. And I said, sign me up.
You know what's better than bartending?
What?
Videography.
True.
I'm 100% going to Worlds. I am going with
Yeah.
the squad to Worlds for free. I'm getting flued out after filming
Ooh-wee.
this very nice. I probably shouldn't say this because I also want him to be a guest, but he was a fitness instructor and I filmed his course. Very fit. Want him to come on, talk about fitness. Yeah, I think he trains with some of the people at TLI, but everything I do, like that's why I'm on this podcast, is because, between being able to produce videos and network with people, journalism, that's an industry, and photography, that's in jiu-jitsu. It's something that will get me money, but keeps me doing exactly what I want to do.
So those kind of, with the making money thing, I think having marketable skills assists tremendously. And you need to know the niche that you're going for. Like, you have valuable skills as a videographer, and you found the niche in the jiu-jitsu niche. And like Master Lloyd always says, there's riches and niches. And you got to carve your way out to find that side hustle that is going to allow you to do that. And with those marketable skills, specialized knowledge, you can make it happen. And it can help with the time money disconnect.
Yeah, because when we go into like what we talked about with Tallis in the interview that you'll hear eventually, and he was talking about, we asked him how he does his social media, and he does it all himself. He does it with Canva. And I was talking about how I just did that class. Like, if you want sponsors, you need to know how to create a brand. You need to know how to create consistency in an image or something like that. So that's really essential to making money. If you want to get sponsors, for example, to pay for tournaments or gis, like, first of all, if you're going to go full time, you need to know how much your expenses are, your monthly expenses. And it's like, most people don't know how much money they need to survive in a month. Like, before I left my job, I know how much money that job was paying, and it wasn't paying that much because it was part-time. So I knew how much I had, and then I knew how much like I needed to match it. And then like I had a person that used to pay for all of my tournaments. That's a friend of mine that passed. Like, so I know when I start competing, that was a huge expense of mine. And like he sponsored everything as far as like going to like tournaments in Tokyo. So now for me, if I want to get back into competing, that's like realistic. Like, you think if you said it's to compete 6 times like a year, and IBJJF is like 130 maybe, and I compete more than 6 times a year, that's at least $1,000, $1,000, 1,500 in IBJJF competitions that I need a year. Not to mention the travel expenses, like for example, Europeans, worlds, pans, all traveling. Like that's an extra 1,000 each one. So like that breaks down like my competition expenses for a year to be a minimum of $5,000. Like most athletes don't think in those senses. Like, so like one thing that I hate is when an athlete asks me to sponsor a competition, it's like, yo, when is the competition and how much is it? Like, how much do you need? And they never know most of the time.
Yeah. Some general basic accounting to know how much you're making and how much is going to come out is important. And I wish I had known that before. Because it's easy to just look at your bank account and say, oh, I have this much money. But if you're not calculating how much is coming in and how much is going out and predicting it, or just taking into account Katrina moments, which we'll get into in a little bit later, you're going to be asked out. And you're going to be sitting there wondering, how come, I want all this shit, but now I might have to get a full-time job to pay for all the debt that I'm in from all this, or I'm going to get more hours on my side hustle, which is going to end up being my full-time hustle, and I'm going to miss out. Some other things that I noticed was with teaching in private lessons, typically you're going to be teaching at the gym that you're training at 9 times out of 10. And with that making money aspect of it, if you're training at this place for free, you might get screwed in the negotiations, and it is hard to negotiate with someone that is training you. The coach boss dynamic is super problematic. If I'm going to be honest, there's going to be some crossover and there's going to be static and it's going to be awkward. I think from my experience when I was teaching at the school, there were some sore feelings. I mean, I pinned past it, I manned up about it, but there were some sore feelings afterwards. And for me, once I decided to get out of the bubble of teaching officially at the gym that I started at, I made the choice not to go back as a full-time instructor.
Yeah,
because
that makes sense.
I feel as though you can always come back, but I don't necessarily think you should want to come back from that. And you just got to be careful of it. Private lessons, people say they make money doing private lessons, and different situations for different folks. When I was coaching on Who's Next, one of the guys that I taught, or I'm sorry, one of the guys on my team said that they taught private lessons and were able to make a living doing so. However, they were in Austin, Texas doing this, and that's a jiu-jitsu hotbed, and that's a lot of excess money that people have. And the hard truth of it all is that if you're going to make money teaching private lessons, you got to understand that you're doing a luxury service. It's not necessary. It's not like you're an electrician. It's not like you're a plumber. It's a trade, but it's not a valuable trade that is an absolute necessity that people will pay top dollar for or give you a lot of money for. So you have to keep that in mind. It's feast or famine.
I think but like you hit two different things that I wanted to comment on. And it's like, one is like luxury services, like that's very true. It's like you need to be careful about that, but you also need to exploit that. And, need to know how to deal with that. Like I think I mentioned to you before, like one major move like that you can make is like not accepting cash. Like how are you getting these luxury clients? Are they locking in like, do you know what a PIF is, like, which is in like gym terminology? It's like where you pay everything up front. Like, do you have a contract? Like you shouldn't be accepting cash. Like, and that means like Cash App, PayPal. Like, do you have a way to invoice people? Do you have a way to actually get their bank account numbers? Like, because I was trying to lock in like a podcasting thing and they were trying to lower the rate. I was like, the only way to lower your rate is to pay the full month in advance. And like, they're like, that's exactly kind of like the opposite I was going. I was like, well, you're kind of like janky as it is. So like, and talking about it, it's like, so the price is what it is. And the only way to lower it is if you want to pay one lump sum. And it's like, but most people that give private lessons don't know how to schedule. They don't know how to leverage that. They don't know how to charge things. So it's like, it can be very hard to schedule private lessons. But if you get quality luxury clients that are willing to like pay that, like I know I've seen today, like literally he's had somebody that was a private student, didn't want to teach normal classes. He paid, and he would do it in a row. He paid Today classes. He paid Jonathan Marquez Moicano private classes. He paid Buddha classes, and he paid Fabricio private classes. He was paying like 4 people private classes. He was financing like their whole lifestyles. Like, but he didn't want to train. So it's like a matter of like, if you want to teach private classes, just like they say, like the OnlyFans, you need to know how to like pimp out those private classes, make them meaningful. You know, that's really important. Like knowing how to like leverage yourself as an independent contractor and like secure your money. Because the last thing you need to be doing is teaching those private classes and using your body and then having to chase down your money. That's why you want your credit card. Your shit should be coming out automatically.
I say you got to pay up front. You got to pay up front, and you have to have a price chart. You know,
yeah, like you need
got to
like a
make it so,
service, like services,
yes,
like things like Honeybook, like that. Well, you can get a consultation private. You just have it all. Like sign it up. Those are really important things. If you want to go professional, you need to be professional, and you need to study those kind of things. And then when you were talking about working with a gym, one thing that I learned from Master Lloyd, you should never have one of anything, and you should never have one source of income. And like that came from him. And this is a man that will hire anybody to do sales at his gym. Never, ever would I have quit my job to train with Master Lloyd, do videography for Master Lloyd, compete under Master Lloyd, not pay Master Lloyd's gym fees, and then expect him to pay me. Like there was like, he can't be my end all be all. Like that's not the way to hedge your bets. You can't put all of your eggs in one basket. So like people that want to like be at a gym and get their money from a gym, that's a very precarious situation. You don't want to be in a situation or put yourselves in a situation where like you're asking for something for free and you also need them to like kind of feed you or sustain yourself. So it's like you have to be careful about like how you use and abuse the relationships that you have with people.
all very important. All, and it's a lot to take in when you are trying to train full time. It's a lot to think about, and
Because
there's
most
no
people
blueprint. There's no blueprint.
And most people just want to train. They just want to train full time. They won't have to think about it. So when somebody is like, oh, yeah, you can train here and then you can try to run sales here or something like that, like you want to take it. But like, you really just got to know what is really best for you.
Exactly. Sponsorships. I mean, you know, sugar daddy, sugar mama. We're not really gonna get into that, but there are people that got those. Okay, and those situations are different. So there's no hard and fast rules. Uh, sponsors, these companies don't want to spend money, and there's an argument for the whole structure of sponsorships in jiu-jitsu is kind of bad because anecdotally speaking, people will say that people don't spend money on promo codes, you know, and you got to hustle, like you got to grind to let people know that you have a promo code. And just because you do your due diligence does not mean that your fans are going to invest their money on your promo code with your stuff. And sometimes, most of the time, when people have sponsorships, they make money through how many people use their promo code. I can't tell you how many times when people hit me up with like, hey, you want to be a sponsored athlete, or I'll contact people and they say, we can't give you any money, but if you sell this amount of gis, if we front you, it's like consignment in some instances. Or if they use your promo code, you get a percentage, and it's a small percentage. Mind you, these companies make money hand over fist just from just how much money they spend on making the gear to how much people pay for it, but they're still not going to try to pay you. And I think hoping that a sponsor is going to pay your way, whether it's a sugar daddy, a sugar mama, or a company, it's not a good idea, because at any point they can drop you. There was a lot of people that during the pandemic, they got dropped by their sponsors, and they were making good sponsorship money because ribs were touching. That's all. That's all I had to say about sponsors.
In respect to sponsors, I would say like To speak from personal experience, I like sponsors as a contract. It's like, and I understand like while Tim is like financially hurt and would say what it is like, I also feel like in a business sense, like if you're getting a sponsorship from a BJJ company, it's like you're getting sponsorship from like a third world country. It's like cool. Like jiu-jitsu doesn't have money, so obviously they were going to drop everything during like the pandemic because I don't think they're making a lot of money. I
Nope.
do think that like there are opportunities in sponsorship outside of jiu-jitsu, and like you need to like search for them and educate yourself on like how to find them, which was I was in the master class which I dropped. Like I think there are alternatives and other avenues to sponsorship outside of like a gi brand. Everybody wants to hit up a gi brand. That's like oversaturated, you know. So you really need to think about like what kind of sponsorship do you need, like the kind of categories, because it's not just gis and it's not just gear. And it's like I said, I was a blue belt and I have flown to Tokyo, and not only did I have everything paid for, I had money given to me to spend. Like I did not spend any money. Like there's ways to get sponsorship or companies, but most people go about it in just like cold call ignorant form. They're not aware of how to leverage themselves as athletes. They're not aware of what companies want, and they don't go about it correctly. Nor do they know how to like leverage their contracts or understand like what is a contract and what they can do for a company. So I think if you want to be professional in jiu-jitsu, it's important to really research more about what is sponsorship and what is personal branding and how to get a sponsor and like really how to like make money. Because like you say people don't use promo codes, and I know somebody that has won free trips by running Facebook ads with an Uber promo code. Like he's like been flued out because he knew how to hustle Facebook ads so everybody would use his promo code. Like, so it's just a matter of like, are you aware of how to leverage what you got? Like you can, like, if you want to get that money, like you got to chase that bag, but you got to be smart enough to get that bag.
Mm-hmm.
But like everything that Tim said, like you got to be aware about that. Like if you like, it's not wrong. Like if you have a gi sponsor, like, cause like both Tim and I know his sponsor, and it's like, you got to understand most of those people, they did default on paying, and it's not, he's not the only person that has had an issue where they're not getting paid by their sponsor. And that's why I would never like that's, I'm always telling people, fuck a gi sponsor, like go find a lawyer or like an actual company that has money and needs a tax write-off and just has hundreds of dollars to randomly give away for somebody. Like, but that's not what people really do. So
Nope.
you need to expand your idea of what sponsorship is, because BJJ people are broke.
Yeah, I think that's another discussion for another time, but I don't know necessarily if this is an industry that has long-term growth ability and can last. But that's a whole nother story.
Don't say that. Don't say
that.
Tim, this is like, and this is what I said at the beginning of the episode. Tim be scaring everybody away from jiu-jitsu.
I'm not scaring people away from jiu-jitsu. I'm just saying that you have to take into account that at the top, they can default on you. So you need to be ready for Katrina moments. That's the point I'm trying to make. What is a Katrina moment? Huh?
I said, grab your masters, y'all.
Grab your masters. Katrina moments. I call them Katrina moments because Hurricane Katrina can happen at any time. You guys remember Hurricane Katrina? I know you remember.
No.
Some of us don't. You don't remember Hurricane
I'm
Katrina?
just fucking with you.
Okay. So, you know, these people, they lived in New Orleans on the Gulf Coast and everything was hunky-dory. And then next day they're in the Superdome on a cot. It was a Katrina moment. And you got to have Katrina money prepared and put to the side for injury, or you just plain old run out of money because jiu-jitsu is expensive. You can get kicked off a team or have a spat with your coach. Maybe it's about money. Let's say, you know, you decide to work there full time and they tell you you're going to get paid a certain amount. And then within 6 months, they switch it up on you. You got beef with your coach, who's also your boss, and you're asked out. Or, and it's happened to plenty of people, your gym closes. All these things can happen. They've happened. And you got to be ready for Katrina moments. So you got to be financially literate. You got to know how much you need every month, but you also got to be prepared for if you go 6 months without a paycheck. You got to be ready for if you get hurt. Do you have money set aside for your bills when you're laid up? Did you have health insurance? Do you have to have a GoFundMe if you get hurt or you get asked out or you run out of money? All these things you have to keep in mind if you're going to go full time, because if you're an athlete, your body is your job and the human body is very fragile. If you're a coach, shit, the human body is fragile. We could have a virus that wipes out 1 million people in this country, or your school just closes down or something happens. So that's what you have to keep in mind when you're doing full time. The Katrina moments. Nico, any thing you want to say about that? I know you probably have stories and examples
No,
or different
I've always
perspective.
actually had a job or a steady secondary stream of income or hustle. And then at one point, when I didn't have health insurance, I had Aflac. So I paid for that extra weird health insurance. But I was, for an extended period of time, training jiu-jitsu with no health insurance.
Wowzers. Scary out here, huh?
Yeah, my
It's
advice to
nerve
y'all is
wracking.
go to Brazil, socialized healthcare, move to a country with socialized healthcare. Because
That's always, somebody tried to convince me to move to Brazil for them a little while ago. And I was really considering it, but I don't know if I could make that jump. But if I did have the balls and I didn't have other things going on, I might do it for the universal healthcare alone, or the socialized healthcare. Sorry, socialized healthcare. Communism. That's what it is. Just kidding.
socialism.
Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. I'm just trolling now. I know we have some people that are fighting the power that might get offended if I said it. It was all a joke, folks. I don't think socialized healthcare is communism. I don't think they're trying to take our rights away by giving us free healthcare. Healthcare is a human right. So, yeah.
Now we're canceled.
Yeah, when I were canceled, but you got to be ready for Katrina moments. Like if I didn't have health insurance or I didn't have a job or a gig, I'd be fucked
Yeah, I
when I got
know.
hurt. Or you're just in financial ruin and that can end your career. Just like if you don't have a support system, or you're already living on a prayer and something like that happens, it can end your full-time career. And for some
Mm-hmm.
people, that's heartbreaking. Some people, it's a blessing in disguise, but you have to be aware of the Katrina moments. I say you got to have at least 3 to 6 months worth of bills, money set aside
I want to know
before
who
you
has
start.
savings. Like Tim is real bougie. Tim got things that nobody has. Like you
But I
have
had to,
savings.
yeah, I save my money. I save my money.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Whatever. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, the Katrina moments are real things though. Like you
But I
definitely
have a,
have to be prepared.
I have lifestyle luxury. I have luxuries in my life that make it possible and feasible. But even then, I have to be careful of it because it's feast or famine in this industry, and I'm transitioning into other things.
Don't.
So it's kind of hard for me to make that decision, but those are things you have to think about. And it's scary. This is a young person's game that we're playing here. Most of the people that decide to do full time are in their 20s, maybe younger. Some of them don't have any other life options. And it's scary being an adult. What we do is scary. Doing this is nerve wracking. And then you have to take into account real adult shit like Katrina money, like a plan B. It's scary, but you have to look at it with eyes wide open, because if you don't, you're going to be down the road and ass out, and you're going to be wondering why I didn't think of this. So it's important that you think about what can happen and be as prepared as possible that you can. And in my opinion, if you aren't ready for the Katrina moments, it's foolish for you to pursue this shit. I'm gonna just say it real bluntly. It's foolish. It's foolhardy.
I feel like nobody is ready for the Katrina moments, but it's important that we point that out that you should be
You
because that is
should. Don't
intelligent.
say I didn't warn you. If you don't
Mm-mm.
have it set aside, or if you're not the type of person that is planning for that kind of shit, it can hurt you in the long run. But my final thing is a plan B, not the pill. Although, if I'm a bro grappler, I'm probably gonna be willing to invest in it because I don't know, like being a dope ass broke ass grappler and a dad, not fly.
Yeah.
Plan
Basically,
B,
yeah. I feel like we
invest in
talked a
Plan
little bit
B.
about touched on each of these, but go ahead, go through.
I mean, we already talked about marketable skills outside of jujitsu. Are you a videographer? Are you a electrician? Do you know something that other people don't know that they're willing to pay top dollar for? I got a friend that got some certifications in computers, and he makes six figures a year now and just sits at home working from home, high as fuck, drinking beers, listening to Currency, and sending me memes because he has a marketable skill that he had to grind and do. A higher degree of education. If you have a master's degree, you're going to have a better chance, depending on the major that you have, of finding a job.
Yo,
And
I know some low key doctors on the mat.
yes, and they are able to train and have a good time. As a side note, if you're a younger person listening to this and you want to go full time, I will say this: you can have success full time. Statistically speaking, if you train full time, your chances of success are higher. But I want you to think about this: maybe training a little bit less and having some adult responsibilities, i.e., a job, can help you go further in your career and pursuit of jiu-jitsu excellence than going full time. Like you said, there are lawyers on the mat, doctors on the mat that are still killers. And take it from me, when I was training only part-time and when I was in college and I was a full-time student and wasn't able to get good training in all the time, like mainly my training was during breaks, I still won Pan Ams and Europeans and medaled at Worlds, just to keep that in mind. Now, with that higher degree of education, you can find a job that fits you, that has a great schedule. But always have in mind a plan B. And sometimes it can be in the same industry. There's plenty of guys that were full-time athletes that said, fuck this, winning a world title is cool, but I don't want to eat off food stamps. So I'm going to be teaching, and I'm going to use my marketable skill and link up with someone that has another marketable skill, and we can make jujitsu make money for us. Like if you are an athlete, you know, a videographer, y'all connect, y'all make a product, you can do it. Networking. So use those skills that you have to have a time money disconnect so you don't have to use your body. Alec Balding, he was my assistant coach on Who's Next. His whole thing is he's a have gi will travel type coach where people fly him out. He does his social media and he's able to make a pretty decent living on his own by doing that. Now he may or may not train full time, but he coaches full time. But he used other marketable skills that he has, whether it's videography, social media, video editing, all that good stuff, so that that is his plan B. And it's a transitional skill. He's able to teach. He knows how to teach people. He knows how to talk on camera. He knows how to make content. He doesn't have to be in the jiu-jitsu bubble to get by. So I think a plan B is always important, and keep that in mind. All right. So that's my piece on it. But we reiterated that already. Go ahead, Nico.
No, that's all I got. When we are out of time for that one, really, and that was beautifully wrapped up. So I just want to end it all, the things that we went over. If you want to go full time, to think about expenses, how you going to make money, Katrina moments or those disasters, and what is your plan B? I think those are 4 amazing points to end it on.
Yeah. Well, this has been a great enlightening episode, hopefully, for you all listening. Speaking of a plan B, or speaking of the hustle, I just want to give a shout out to one of our sponsors. It's John's Fit Meals. They have the best meal prep company ever. I eat their meals all the time, and they help me stay strong. They fill me up. Man, I think that my gains in the weight room and in the gym are all from eating properly. And I'm a guy that used to eat like 20-piece McNuggets and large fries before every practice. So getting with John's Fit Meals has helped me tremendously. And I think you should use them too. So use promo code BJJ Goons for a very nice discount, and tell them the Mushmaster sent you. Nico, where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Nico. That's no_Nico. And make sure to stop by favelajujitsu.com. You can get your official BJJ Goons merch there. We also have a lot of articles and news about the jiu-jitsu community.
You can find me at Tim Spriggs BJJ on Instagram and Facebook. And you can also find me at timspriggsbjj.com. There, I teach private lessons, both in person and virtually. I create game plans for my virtual students, and I will even critique your matches if you send me footage. But most importantly, if you're a school owner and you want to bring out the best grappler in the world, go to timspriggsbjj.com. Let's set up a seminar, and I can teach you all how to be just as good as Blast Level Poppy. Maybe not get all the medals I have, but you're going to learn what helped me get to the top. On behalf of my, yes. What?
Busting out the AKAs again. Blast Level Poppy.
I mean, I got so many. I might bust those out one more time. We'll see. But on behalf
they need to be used.
Okay. On behalf of Nico and the BJJ Goons community, I want to say thank you guys for listening. See you next time. Peace.
Peace, y'all.